Hello there, this is Steve here in Sydney. I want to make here an official attempt at answering the question posed by Alex of Skeptiko.com in his interview with Robert McLuhan, author of Randy's Prize. I'm going to try and give you a 3-minute summary of what the social phenomenon of skeptics is, because it was pointedly said in the question put. Skeptics have no interest in evidence or data. There's some kind of social phenomenon difficult to divine. So just what is it? And here I am going to give you a 2, 3, 4 minute summary of that. So here goes. The most informed skeptics and the most trustworthy skeptics, the most honest skeptics, are those that are faced with a jail sentence if they lie, namely policemen. There's at least one police department that has employed ESP through psychics for some 30 years and scored numerous, we don't know the full number, scored quite a few successful convictions based purely on the advice of a psychic. The policemen involved prosecuting the criminals, putting them in jail, don't have the luxury of lying. They simply can't do it, or they face contempt of court, lying in court charges, and even possibly go to jail themselves. So they are highly reliable. And the policemen do say in television discussions about this matter that seeing conviction after conviction after conviction, that all they can do is exercise the too hard basket and put the mechanism of how this happens in the too hard basket, but make full use of the mysterious process by successfully convicting criminals. Thus we have highly reliable, highly conservative men threatened with jail if they lie in court, telling us that ESP is absolutely real. So they are highly credible witnesses to the phenomenon of ESP and things paranormal generally. I do insist that the policemen are skeptics. They are known to be conservative, skeptical. They don't believe anything unless they've double-checked it. Scoring convictions depends on it. And I've been in court cases myself, and I had my identity double-checked, my wife's identity checked to make sure I was the person they're actually talking to and that sort of thing. So they double-check everything. So they are indeed very skeptical of everything, all information presented to them. In that sense, they are excellent skeptics. But there is no such enforcement of honesty on all the other skeptics in the world. In the public domain, you're allowed to lie, in fact encouraged to lie. There's really no penalty for lying. In fact, there are benefits for lying in the public domain, fame and fortune. So you can keep saying, for example, you can keep flying the circus balloon of the paranormal bashing thing, like magicians have been doing since Victorian times, and just say there's no such thing as the paranormal, I'll disprove you, step onto my stage. That's hoopla lying for entertainment, and it's been going on since Victorian times. And there's absolutely no penalty whatsoever for lying. In fact, the opposite's true. There's a penalty for telling the truth and finally admitting that the police do have forensic evidence of ESP, and really I've been lying all this time to my skeptic following all over the world. And what happens is your paranormal bashing balloon is popped. So you're never going to see James Randi, Richard Wiseman, those sorts of people, Richard Dawkins, ever admit that police forensic evidence exists. That they will lie to keep the balloon flying. Okay? It's careers for all of them. Okay? Now, separate from the public figures associated with skepticism, we have the grassroots phenomenon, which is online pseudo-skeptics. And I can sum them up fairly quickly in light of recent brain scan evidence that we all have religious practicing physical modules and organs in our brain for practicing religion. We are all predisposed mechanically, physically in our brain structures to think religiously and do religious practices. Now, What the online skeptics do, they have a greater luxury even than James Randi. They're totally anonymous online. They are exercising their religious brain circuitry to be what is effectively a counter-religion, a religion of being the opposite, contrarianism, denialism of all other religions but their own, which they call rational, which is clearly not. But their religious practice daily consists of playing Walter Mitty online anonymously, posing as scientists, so frequently they do that, medical researchers, and then turning into a prosecutor demanding evidence very quickly, which they never provide for anybody else. And then when an average person with greater brain capacity opposes them and just puts a fact in their face, they generally inject a cloud of angry, expletive disinformation, which is always false and off the point. That's basically what they do, and then they disappear and start the whole cycle again. And by doing this, they're actually exercising their religious circuitry in their physical brain, unwittingly, of course. They insist they're not religious, they're atheists, but in fact, I would say most atheists do give hints, at least, that they're not complete atheists, and it might only be a temporary situation for them. They give themselves a way back, a comeback later on. But basically, I would say most of the people complaining or claiming to be atheists all certainly have a lot of religious practices under their belt on the internet, parroting the words of James Randi, the holy man. The devotee's defence of James Randi, no matter how many roguish things he's done, has been noted. It happens time and time again. I've done it myself many, many hundreds of times. So all the attributes of religious devotion are present in James Randi devotees, the so-called online pseudo-skeptics. And of course they have the luxury of absolute anonymity, and they can do or say anything, and they lie nearly every time they type something. And they start off posing as a scientist, which they never are. So, trying to get them to look at police evidence, they go through the usual disinformational denialism, the lying and the retreat. Done it numerous times now. They all follow the same pattern. So, how's that for an attempt at answering Alex's question? That is the social phenomenon. Now what I'll try and do is give you some of the groupings inside pseudo-skepticism online. And by that I mean they appear to be a madding crowd of angry people, but they divide up into groups. And you can pick them just by watching them for a couple of years. It doesn't take long to figure these things out. Probably 25% of them have some kind of mild autism like Asperger's. Some of them are mentally feeble. Difficult to put a number on that because many of them fake feebleness. Probably 50% of them are enfeebled mentally and thus capable of a lot more, but they're enfeebled by the trauma of molestation. And that also leads to doubts and fears, very severe doubts and fears about their orientation in some of them, and they become the militant atheists. Now, this has been talked about in school bullies. That's one of the reasons for school bullying in high schools as people are growing up in their teenage years, that fears of orientation can cause a male to become a school bully. So cyberbullying occurs in schools. People commit suicide as a result of it. So very clearly it's a very aggressive, offensive thing to do. Yet pseudo-skeptics are basically cyberbullies operating anonymously. So we have to consider that. There's another bunch of these cyberbullying pseudo-skeptics who are absolutely content-free in their discussions. They simply try and hold someone in a conversation for a while and just drip venomous contempt all over them about how snivelling and insignificant the other person is, and how utterly useless and devoid of intelligence, and their knowledge is zero, that sort of thing. And these people never identify themselves or let you know what any qualifications or knowledge they have, they simply just keep pouring insults. Now, they've got the problem of narcissism, psychopathic narcissism, and that's due to a deep down feeling of being the lowest form of animal life, believing that you don't really think you should even be here, you're so unworthy. A chronic feeling of profound unworthiness, not deserving to be here, is one of the great motivations of skeptics. And that's why the religion of evolution, because it promises them certain death, personal extinguishment, and the utter end of the suffering they have here, because none of them are happy to be here. You ask them, they're all very unhappy. Evolution promises ultimate and total extinguishment, which is what they seek. So it's a kind of soft, suicidal tendency that pseudo-skeptics have online. There's a few things you've probably noticed about pseudo-skeptics online, this mass madding crowd of angry people. Number one is that they can only discourse with you, only converse by disagreement. Try and ever get agreement with a pseudo-skeptic. See if you can get them to agree with you. It's virtually impossible. So there's something very lopsided in their conversational skills. They just can't agree with anybody. That's a defect, I'm certain. And other things they don't do is that they never upload videos of their companion animals, which raises the question, did they ever have pets? Did they ever have the benefit of having companion animals? It certainly doesn't show in their YouTube accounts, which are noteworthy for their emptiness. They don't produce anything and give it away, so they're only receivers, they're all takers. Very few of them seem to be givers, wanting to provide any sort of free public service, which a lot of mainstream people do. And another thing you've probably noticed if you watch skeptics is that they never use those friendly and adorable emoticons that people just make up as they go along from off the keyboard. Mainstream people do this frequently, but I've never seen it coming from skeptics. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Show me some skeptic entries where people use emoticons at all. So it raises the question, are they devoid of certain emotions? Possibly quite a few. So it seems, it looks to us from what they type on the internet all day, that they lead a life greatly depleted compared to mainstream people. This is worthy of note, worthy of discussion. And now just a quick summary of the various types of skeptics and the different advantages they have. Police skeptics, who are the most genuine and are forced to learn as they go along, that's how you solve crimes. They're in a court case, they have to admit to the judge or defence lawyer how they got the evidence, how they got the idea to go and dig in a certain place in the desert or go to a certain house or a certain crime scene to discover something. They have to be truthful, that's the policeman, or he can face jail for contempt of court. Thus, his word is the most trustworthy, especially when he's seen conviction after conviction after conviction, and repeated this in court numerous times, and it's on police record, and the police actually employ psychics to help them solve difficult crimes. So honesty is compelled upon the policeman reporting his ESP experiences, listening to a psychic mumbling with her eyes closed, right? He's got to do this, even though it sounds bizarre.